So today we're going to talk about why I believe your 40s and 50s are not too late to build real lasting wealth. Not only is it not potentially too late, but your 40s and 50s may actually be some of the best wealth building years of your life. So in this video, I want to show you some real practical strategies of how you can build lasting wealth even in your 40s and 50s. So let's be honest, you've probably seen the headlines and you hear the advice to start saving in your 20s. Keep it simple, slow and steady, and let the compounding do its work for 40 years, and you'll retire a millionaire. You probably feel like you've missed the boat at this point. You're in your 40s and 50s, and maybe you're paying off your mortgage or you're trying to send your kids to college, all while the cost of living keeps going up. And the thought of building $1 million nest egg probably feels more like a daydream than it does a goal. So, one of the things that could be holding you back is just the belief that it's too late to even try. But what if I told you that as a financial planner, I've seen in many cases where some of the best wealth building years of a person's life was in their 40s and 50s, and they were able to truly accelerate their wealth because of their age. In fact, I would even argue that your 40s and 50s aren't the end of the road because they may be your peak earning years. So it's not the time for a slow and steady approach like you might take when you're young. It's time for a different and more accelerated strategy. So first things first, you might be thinking this is great, but does the math even work in my favor? Let's take a look at how the math can work. Let's take a hypothetical 45-year-old and say they've managed to save about $100,000 so far. Now they get serious and they want to start aggressively saving about $25,000 per year for the next 20 years until they're 65. Assuming a hypothetical return of 8% in the market, that initial $100,000 could grow to over $460,000 all on its own. The consistent contributions, however, are the real powerhouse. That extra $25,000 a year could add over $1.1 million to the retirement portfolio, ending with a hypothetical portfolio of nearly $1.6 million by retirement. So the math shows what is hypothetically possible, and that time can still be on your side. So it's not just about avoiding a stressful retirement at this point, it's about building a future where you have financial freedom and you're able to potentially pass on a legacy to your children, to your grandchildren, or to things that you care about most, like your charities. Also, this isn't just about numbers, it's also about mindset. So it's important to stop thinking that you're behind because you're not playing the same game as someone who is younger trying to save up for the retirement. One of your advantages is your wisdom. You may understand the value of a dollar in a way that somebody who is younger just can't understand. You've likely made some financial mistakes in your life up to this point, and hopefully you've learned a few things from them. Most importantly, in your 40s and 50s, you may be making more money than you ever have been before. So the real shift goes from I'll save what's left over to I'll spend what's left over. This is one of the key differences in building wealth or just getting by. So you invest first and then you live on the rest. You're not just trying to play catch up here, you're strategically cashing in on your peak earning years to build wealth on a faster time frame. Now let's talk about the aggressive saving strategy that'll help boost your wealth. The goal isn't just to save, it's to save in a smart and tax advantaged way. So let's start with your workplace retirement plan, 401ks, 403bs. For 2025, the contribution limit is 23,500, and a key goal in the strategy is to try to hit that number. I know it may seem impossible. We'll talk about how to free up your cash flow so that you can potentially get to these amounts later, but the key goal would be to try to hit that number. And here's the first secret weapon. If you're 50 or older, you can add an additional $7,500 in contributions to your 401k or 403b, bringing your total up to 31,000. That is a specific advantage that's only available to your age group. Also, if your employer offers a match, you may want to consider taking full advantage of that match. Not doing so would be like leaving money on the table. In 2025, there's also a new higher super catch up for people who are age 60 to 63. That officially starts in 2025. It allows for a catch up of up to 11,250 if the plan adopts that provision. Next up is your individual retirement account, your IRA. For 2025, you can put 7,000 away, and just like the 401k, there's a catch up for being 50 or older, letting you add an additional $1,000 for a total of $8,000. So a married couple over 50 can put away a combined total of $16,000 into their IRAs each year. Whether you go with traditional or Roth IRAs is really dependent on your financial situation, your tax bracket, like where your tax bracket is now and where you think it'll be in the future. This stuff's best figured out working with a financial professional like a financial planner like us, but it's definitely something to consider. Finally, one of the most underrated tools is the health savings account or the HSA. If you have a high deductible health plan, this is a triple tax advantage vehicle. The money goes in tax deferred, it grows tax deferred, and then it comes out tax free when it's used for qualified medical expenses. For 2025, you can contribute up to $4,300 for an individual or $8,550 for a family. And yes, there's a catch up for this too. If you're 55 or older, you can add an extra $1,000 in contributions. And a great strategy for your HSA is to consider paying for your medical bills out of pocket. Keep the receipts, but let this account grow tax deferred. And then in the future, you can reimburse yourself with those receipts that you collected by withdrawing the money tax free. If you want to see sort of how this works with a more in-depth explanation, check out our video where we talk a little bit more in depth about this strategy. So if you add it all up, a hypothetical couple in their late 50s could be saving well over $70,000 per year, all of it tax advantaged, and this would be a real boost to your wealth if you can manage to save this aggressively. Next, we're going to talk about increasing your income. And you might be thinking, well, duh, I would have thought about that if it was that simple. If you've been working in the same career for decades, that's not just a line on a resume, that's a valuable asset. So it might be time to consider building a case to negotiate a higher salary. Document your accomplishments, know your value, see what other people in your field are being paid for that position, and see if you can negotiate a higher salary. If your employer won't pay you what you think you're worth, it might be time to find a company that will. And sometimes the biggest pay bumps can happen when changing jobs. So that's one way that you can potentially increase your income. Beyond the 9 to 5, another part of the strategy is just creating more income streams. It's not about getting a part-time job. Think about monetizing your skills. Can you consult in your field? Can you take on freelance projects? Can you teach an online course on the skill that you've been spending the last 20 years perfecting? If you start thinking more like an entrepreneur, you may be able to add thousands or tens of thousands to your bottom line income, which can help provide a sense of control. Every extra dollar earned shouldn't go towards a fancy car or a nice dinner or vacations. Although it would be great to do that, this is an aggressive saving strategy. Every dollar earned from that additional income that you make should go towards your investments. Now, let's talk about the investments. With a shorter timeline, you might feel like you need to take huge risks to get huge returns, but be cautious. That could be one of the quickest ways to financial harm. The goal is to invest smart. It's not a weekend in Vegas. You may still have 15 to 25 years before retirement, which is plenty of time to let the stock market work. But remember, all investments involve risk. So, since you're trying to build wealth quickly, you may want a portfolio that's slightly tilted more towards growth, which often means stocks. For many, a popular, straightforward way to do this is low-cost index funds that track the whole market like the S&P 500, but it is more complicated than that because all investments involve risk. Your personal risk tolerance is very important to this equation. Asset allocation is one of the ways that financial professionals like myself help clients reduce risk in the market by allocating their assets between stocks and bonds or equities and fixed income properly. When we help our clients, we help them by taking them through a risk questionnaire to figure out their personal risk tolerance. We kind of mesh that along with their full financial plan, and then we allocate their portfolio accordingly. Also, when you have an allocation, consider rebalancing that allocation to allow you to maintain that same allocation so that you don't end up taking on too much risk or too little risk in the market based on your situation. Another investment that can help build wealth and also potentially provide a secondary source of income is real estate. So not everybody wants to be a landlord, and it can be difficult to do so. But it's another investment option that you do have available to you that can provide an increase in your net worth, increase in your wealth, and also that other source of income to save more towards your investments. Now let's talk about debt. Being chained to high interest debt can make this aggressive savings plan very difficult because it eats up your cash flow. Priority number one should be to eliminate high interest consumer debt. Credit cards charging 20% or more. Paying off a credit card with a 22% interest rate is like getting a 22% return on your money, which no investment can promise that. So whether you use the debt snowball method to pay off the smallest balances first, or you use the debt avalanche where you want to pick the highest interest rate and pay that down first for the most savings, just pick one and attack it with focus to free up more of that cash flow. Next, also consider your mortgage. Even though your mortgage may be a low interest rate, 2, 3, 4, 5%, you still may want to consider paying off the mortgage or at least paying it down because walking into retirement with a mortgage can still feel like a financial burden, and the freedom and the security that you feel from owning your home outright can feel priceless. So think about making a couple extra payments per year. Even just one extra payment per year can potentially cut years off of your loans. So, like I said, the goal is to free up your current cash flow so that you can afford to save aggressively and build your wealth. Now, this plan's aggressive, takes discipline and focus, but building a seven-figure net worth starting in your 40s and 50s is absolutely possible. So let's wrap it up. Let's throw out the idea that you're too late to the party. Your age, your experience, and your peak earning power are your true advantages to building wealth. To summarize, first, prove the math is possible. Second, get aggressive with the savings. Third, look for ways to enhance your income so that you can afford to save more. Fourth, invest for growth, but do it intelligently. And fifth, avoid debt to free up your most powerful wealth building tool, your income. If you like this video and want to see more videos on personal finance topics like this one, please like and subscribe to the channel. Also, comment down below which tip you found most useful.